All right, let's get into it. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another Left the Bang show where we talk about the sneakier side of security. Today, we're going to be talking about the creepier side of security, but it's a very important topic that a lot of people don't even realize. And till I got with my next guest, I didn't even realize the extent of it. I knew it was happening. I knew it was a problem, but I didn't know the depth, the nefariousness of it. And we're going to have a great guest on, Bazzel Baz, here in a second. So again, welcome aboard, everybody. This is the Left the Bang show, and we're going to kind of unpack some human trafficking with our guest today. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Bazzel Baz. Say hi to the crew, and welcome aboard, my friend.
Yeah, Yousef, it's good to be here and good to be with everyone. Thank you for having me this morning.
Oh, that's great, Baz. Baz is a very, very busy individual. He has a very awesome background that I want to talk about really quickly and hit some of the highlight points. Let's go ahead and go way back and start in 1978, where Baz started in the United States Marine Corps as a captain, Semper Fi, brother. I got my Marine Corps gold on today myself. And I guess Baz didn't think that was fun enough, so he jumped right from the Marine Corps to the Central Intelligence Agency, where he spent I don't know how many decades protecting not only interests here, but abroad, all over the place, doing some very cool stuff. And again, like, I'm getting sweaty and tired just reading this, Baz. Like, if you didn't have enough things going on in your life, you started the foundation. And oh, by the way, you've been on TV and movies. So like, I'm tired and I want to nap after reading your bio, but this is fantastic, Baz. Really, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. It's been an honor. I've been very, very blessed to do a lot. And I don't think in my days when God finally calls me home, I'll be dissatisfied with life at all, to be honest with you. So, and still got some wind in the lungs, so there's still a lot more to do here. So I intend to do it.
Absolutely. The work you and your foundation does, Baz, there's a lot more piss and vinegar we need out there with this help. So my first question, Baz, is kind of, let's kind of get into the evolution. Like, I don't know where to start with your background. You've literally done everything in the world, but you've seen a lot of threats in your life, Baz, not only in the Marine Corps, but the CIA and all those enemies of America. What pulled you to the transition of child rescue? What was it? An event? Was it a feeling? Did you wake up one day? You've done all this great stuff. What transitioned you?
You know, for a lot of people, know where we got started. Many may not. 1993, Mogadishu, Somalia. Most people are familiar with the Black Hawk Down incident. I was attached prior to that incident with some ground branch special operations teams out of the agency. And during that period of time, we ended up rescuing a couple of little girls and getting them over to an orphanage. Not by assignment, just tugging on our hearts. We knew that they would be collateral damage if something wasn't done, which later became the motto for our, if we do not, then who will? Once we did that, after I returned to the United States, it just kind of tugged on my heart that there was something bigger than overthrowing small governments. And that became the rescue of missing, exploited, and trafficked American children. Now, in 1993, the word trafficked wasn't a fashionable term, and I think this is probably an appropriate time to set the record straight. That term trafficked has become so overused that people don't even flinch an eye at it. So let me give you the definition of what it really means. That it means paid child rape. Someone pays someone money to have their way with anyone under the age of 18, and they rape them, they brutally traumatize them, whatever it may be. And they believe it's their right to do that. The world of child trafficking has become so sophisticated, such a sophisticated business model, I should say, that basically children are a commodity. And every day, literally, and I know there's probably going to be some listeners that go, oh, it can't be that bad. Let me explain something to you. It is really bad. Children are targets of predators every day. And every day there are men and women that have the same skill sets that most of us on this show this morning may have, but they use it for the dark side because it brings in a lot of money. You know, the level of corruption and evil has escalated beyond anything that I remember in 1993. So kind of to come full circle, when I got back to the States, I started checking with my law enforcement partners to find out what was being done with missing, exploited, and trafficked children. And at that time, little to nothing. They were just considered runaways. Things like homicides, car theft, blue collar crime, these were the priorities. And I had literally been told by both three-letter agencies and my local law enforcement partners that their children just weren't a priority.
Wow.
And so it weighed on me so heavily that by 1996, I decided to get out of the agency, something that, to be very honest with you, I thought I would never do. I loved it. You know, the life of a paramilitary case officer was, at least in my mind, the ultimate dream come true. Some of the best people in the world, the most dangerous assignments, and the list goes on and on and on. And quite honestly, Yousef, better than anything you could do in a movie. So
you probably couldn't make up half the stories you ran into, the stuff you can't even talk, and you can't even make this stuff up.
No, you can't. And so I stepped out and just basically initially on my own, on my Thanksgivings or my Christmases, or when I got a break, and would go rescue a kid and then come back. And it all stayed on the radar. And when I made that was from 93 to 96 while I was still in the organization. And then by 96, I thought, okay, I need to do this full time. And quite honestly, I'm not a businessman, you know, and I just kind of jumped in with both feet, and one thing led to another. And a lot of my tier 1 operator friends just said, hey, you know what? I want to do this. So thus developed a staff of all volunteers to this day. We're all volunteers. No one gets a salary. We don't run this like a business. It's not an organization where you get funded. Maybe that'll change one day, and pay salaries. You do it because it's the right thing to do. And oftentimes when resumes are submitted, and quite honestly, we get probably 6 resumes a week, people in our community wanting to do this or come alongside of us. And the litmus test for it is simply that, is like, are you doing it because it's the right thing to do? And if it's not that, then we don't want you on board, to be honest with you, because your agenda is different than ours. So I only know that because we sacrificed so much financially. I got to the point, excuse me, I got to the point where I was going to run an operation and I was getting ready to mortgage my house.
Jeez, good man.
And my good former operator buddies came to me and said, and of course you have to know where they come from. They're kind of well, they're not kind of, they're very faith-based. You know, these are guys that have had their lives saved, and they go, look, like, whether I believe there was a God before or not, what I've come to understand is he doesn't need my belief in order to exist. And so I'm grateful. And so we think that you need to be a better steward of God's resources. And so if you sell your house and you're homeless, then how are you going to go rescue kids? So what I did is I got smarter about how we handled our finances and got a board of directors, and the list went on. And so we've grown to be not the largest, but with all due respect to everybody out there that's involved in this arena, I think we probably could say we're one of the most effective. You know, our technologies that we have in order to find children outrank those in the FBI and most law enforcement. And I say that because I'm an adjunct professor from time to time with the FBI, so I know what they have. And it's not to put them down, but you know, we all know how bureaucracy works. And if you're in a bureaucratic system, guess what? You may get a retirement and you may get a paycheck and everything, but you're not going to be on the cutting edge most of the time. I'll tell you that much.
Yep, absolutely. And the nature of the rape of children, I love how you, I mean, it's horrible to say, but it's great how you put it, Baz, because people need to hear that. That's like a knife in your ear, and you need to stop and listen when people say things like that. And it gets me very angry. You know, the Marine Corps comes out, and there's a lot of red-blooded people out there. What do you say to guys like us, guys who are probably vets, guys who've been in combat, who you know, pipe hitters that want to do work, and they're chomping at the bit to get with you? Do you have to kind of talk with them and go, hey, maybe we could do this, you know, in that nature?
Yeah, well, you know what? Discretion is the greatest part of valor. That's always to be remembered. You know, you never want to squeeze the trigger in anger. It's just not. If you're that type of person, it's probably not a good fit. I don't remember being downrange one time taking great joy in killing my enemies. It's just where we were, and we tried to stay alive. And nobody were heroes. You're just doing your job, you know, and mostly defending your buddies. And as you get older and wiser, you realize how political sometimes things are, and you start to question, why are we here? What are we fighting for? And then and when you save the life of a villager or a child or an elderly person or somebody else, then it kind of resonates with you again while you're there. It's like, okay, even if I save one life, so to speak. So I tell a lot of people that want to come on board, that have a lot of skills, and there are people out there that, even with my lengthy career, they have far more skills than me. They may have done other things. They may be better men than me and women, and I don't have a problem with that. We just do what we do, and we try to be the best at it. When I say the best at it, not for bragging rights, but the better you are at it, the more lives you're probably going to save. So
that's another kid saved, you know?
Right. So I first tell them, look, you need to understand the AO, the area of operation. And it's not about always kicking a door in. It's not about
because that's what we want to do, Baz. That's what we want to pipe. That's all that we can think about. But is that the most effective way to handle it? Yeah.
Good point, Yousef. It's not always. You know, we on a lot of our operations, unless we're overseas and I don't know, like Syria, trying to get some kids from ISIS or something like that, we don't even carry weapons with us. We look for our windows of opportunity. We try to be smart about our operations, and very careful, because you have to remember that the children are already traumatized. So you don't want to end up in a gunfight where there's more trauma, so to speak. And plus, quite frankly, you need to be a smart operator. You need to understand the AO so well that you can be invisible in that AO, get the kid and get out before the perpetrator even knows what happened. So this is how we operate. We operate very much like I did in the CIA, and to some degree like I did in the Marine Corps. That fire that we have. But a lot of people try to come on board, and it's a tough transition for them because, and let me stop right here and say, look, we get just as angry as anybody else. I hate pedophiles. I don't usually say I hate a lot of people, but I hate pedophiles. Okay.
You'll make an exception for this one. Yeah.
I'm going to make a big exception. Or perpetrators against children. I frankly, and I'm pushing hard for it in our legislative agenda, I believe that the only way we're going to put a big dent in this is if the law changes and says, you sexually exploit a child, you get the death penalty. End of story. That's it. Because right now, when I interview perpetrators, and I have interviewed quite a few, I've asked many of them the same question: what is the one thing that would have deterred you from raping that 3-year-old little girl? And almost everybody, or the 14-year-old little boy, or whatever it may be, they've all ended up saying, if I thought I was going to get the death penalty, I wouldn't do it. But right now, I'm in for 7. I'll probably be out in 4, and I'll be back on the street. So they know the system really well. And I think for a lot of us that unaccountability is what probably more frustrating than anything else. So when you come into the world of anti-child trafficking, you have to remember it's very much Fort Apache. You're surrounded. You're surrounded by corruption. You're surrounded by the sale of children. You're surrounded by bad people. You're surrounded sometimes by other NGOs that are competing against you or with you, or don't want to see you succeed because they're afraid you're going to get their grant money or whatever it may be. So you're totally surrounded. So if you can come with the understanding that you're an island, so to speak, and with the attitude that you don't want to fight one dragon, you want to be surrounded by all the dragons, because that way you can fight in any direction and not wonder where they're coming from.
Target-rich environment. What's
yeah,
that?
target. That's great.
Chesty
Yeah.
Puller, man. Hey, we're surrounded. We can attack in all directions.
There you go. Exactly. Then I think it becomes a good fit for us. But we get this, being probably one of the oldest NGOs and child rescue NGOs. We've somewhat perfected the art of vetting, so to speak. So when you've already been down this road, you get to sit back and look at all the new people that come to the table and say they do this or they do that or whatever. And I think that our audience might want to be aware that that not everyone who says they're doing this work are doing this work. Keep in mind, just as this is the trafficking of children is a great business model for pedophiles or predators or pimps or bad people, it's just as much of a business model for NGOs that tug on the heartstrings of people to send money to their organization so that they can get themselves paid every day.
And 0.25% actually goes to trafficking.
Yeah, they may claim, like on an aftercare NGO, they may say we have 120 beds, and they may just have 2 beds, or they may say, that like, I won't name an organization. I got a call from the White House last year during the Trump administration from somebody that was on the President's Human Trafficking Task Force saying, we got someone up here who claims they rescued 2,000 children last year. And I was like, well, I think that's great if they have. And he said, yeah, but how do I find out if they really did that? And I said, ask them to let you look at the files. To go to the case files and have them show you, or call up the foster care or CPS or the parents that their children were returned to and ask. So you have to do a lot of vetting yourself, so to speak. Because dollars, sadly enough, dollars are what buy the airplane ticket to get your team on the flight. They're what put fuel in the surveillance vehicles.
It's energy.
Yeah. But dollars aren't meant to be put in, and a lot of people will disagree with me. At least for us, dollars aren't meant to be put in our personal pocket. That's, like all of our people do something else. Like one of my head of my Pennsylvania office, Dad Turner, former Navy SEAL, worked with us in the CIA, an amazing operator, amazing person. He's the president of the YMCA, and then my director of human trafficking, her churches help sponsor her. And, and I write books or go to speaking engagements, whatever, to pay our regular bills. But all the other stuff goes towards the actual rescue of a kid. And I think it's a good business model, not a good business model. I think it's a good platform for us to be on. And as far as everybody else is concerned, I could really care less what they do.
When you got a mission like that, Baz, the words, the crap, the egos, they all kind of fall to the side. You identify people really quickly. You're like, hey, Roger that. You talked about learning things, and you were in the Marine Corps and the CIA, and things change, perspectives change sometimes. And I saw a post the other day. I don't know what it was, but it was a kid, young Marine, firing a javelin missile, and it's a cool shot. The javelin's coming out of the tube, Every one of those javelins is $80,000. And this post said, hey, we have a Marine shooting an $80,000 missile. That's more than he'll make all year, but he's shooting it at a guy will not make that in his entire lifetime. You know, that's like you take a step back from that one and go, well, wait a minute here. Can we use these resources? Can I take this $80,000 one rocket and try to protect some kids here in our homeland? You know, that seems like a better use of some of it. And for us, especially people who are law enforcement, military, we join to help. We see bad, we see evil, we join, and we don't like bullies. So it's like, why is this not on the tip of everyone's tongue? Why is this not on every bill protecting our kids? You know, we join to go forward and save other people. Like our kids are at threat here. You know, Baz,
Yeah.
let me ask you this. So we have a lot of parents on here, obviously. And these are nefarious forces. They're organizational. They're running this like a business model. What could a parent today do to be more aware of their surroundings, to look for pre-event indicators? Are there locations that you should never go to? Or are there any kind of rule of thumbs that you would give parents to be aware for these indicators?
Yeah, well, first let me say that, Yousef, we have a lot of good strategic partners, other organizations out there that do well, and they are doing a good job at it. You need to find one of those organizations and kind of, run cover underneath their wing or their oversight, so to speak, and they can guide you to that. To give you the 30-second answer to that is virtually impossible. It's like me saying, don't go down an alley. There's so much. I will tell you what
Situation dictates.
Situational awareness is a word we use, in the community, and it's important. I will tell you what we do now. We got tired of listening to everybody, and that's a broad stroke there. Talk about awareness. Awareness is important, but awareness doesn't bring a kid home. Equipping people to run an operation when they see something, and equipping them so they can go do something about it is what brings the kid home. Right. Yeah. So we eventually ended up running a 6-day course of equipping people. It's called Fight Child Trafficking Equipping Course, so that people that came to that course, when they left, they were actually running operations. We've had great success. Oh yeah. In South Dakota, I mean, a week after we had, I don't know, I think we had 70 people. They were running operations immediately the week later successfully. So it's just like, it would be like you and I coming into the Marine Corps, and all we're listening to is that there's going to be a war one day. And this is what happens in war. But if no one gave us an AR, or no one gave us a rucksack and taught us how to fight the battle, by the time the war came, we would be ineffective. We'd be running around in green, just going, I'm a Marine, but we're not really Marines. So our goal is to start building this core, so to speak, of people that can do better than what's being done right now. When we look at our law enforcement partners, I was just on the phone, Zoom yesterday with some great people in Texas, and who are really getting involved in the fight. And we have a lot of people that want to do something, and number one, they're not really sure until they get into it how demanding it is, and number two, they're ill-equipped. And so I tell people,
ill-equipped with what, Baz? Skills, knowledge? Or?
Yeah, tradecraft skills, knowledge. I'll give you a fine example. Right now, the cartels are involved in human trafficking. MS-13 involved in child trafficking. Okay, so let's say, not only are we working on the average pimp and the pedophile and the predator, but organizationally wise, we're looking at the big picture of who's actually running people back and forth. So
organization.
So because the trafficking world is so lucrative, it's not like selling drugs. I sell you a kilo of Coke, you use it. I've got a higher risk at going and getting more and supplying you. Whereas I can give you a 3-year-old girl or a 5-year-old boy or whatever it may be, and I can use that kid all day long, and I can dress that kid up and send him to school during the daytime and say, if you tell anybody about this, we're going to kill your mom and dad. The kid's not going to say anything most of the time. They're so traumatized.
Yeah.
And then you're trafficking them at night. So MS-13, the Bloods, the Crips, the Gershons, the list goes on. There's a ton of people involved with their hands in the pot. These are people that, and I give you an example. If you don't run an SDR from your office to your house, that's a surveillance detection route, to see if you're under surveillance. If they want to send a message to you to stay out of their business, they're not going to do anything to you. They're going to go home and murder your wife and your kids. And now I'm speaking from real things that have already occurred. To send a message, and you're going to stop anti-trafficking. You're most likely going to stop. Yeah. So
I think you told me about this, Baz. You mentioned MS-13. Can you talk about? I think you were the one who told me where they retook some children by force.
They did. We had an incident happen. Actually, it wasn't children in that case. They actually came to what was supposed to be an NGO's safe house, which wasn't a safe house at all. Which, by the way, is another thing that we address. Also, all the people that go, we have a safe house on 14th and Bradshaw. Well, it's not a safe house anymore.
Yeah,
but
let everyone know.
Yeah, and they went there basically to reclaim their girls, so to speak, and they were successful at that. So there's a lot to know about how they all operate. But what I'm getting at is that when you ask the question about people being ill-equipped, look, if you don't know tradecraft, if you're going to run operations, you don't know tradecraft, you don't understand the AO, you don't know who the enemy is, you don't, a lot of stuff, you're probably going to fall on your sword, and it's going to hurt really bad, and you're going to get discouraged, and
if you get to walk away.
Yeah,
lucky
you
enough
walk.
to walk away. Yeah.
So we see a lot of that. We see a lot of people that want to do they really have good hearts, and they want to do good things, but they don't, because they get so discouraged. And then there are those other organizations, like many of us out there, that are small, but they're effective in their own state, and they're doing a great job. And they're doing it.
We have people in the chat right now, and they're name dropping. I'm just kind of watching them go by. But we have, I saw a church in Wyoming and another church in another state where the person who that's their job, they're in this chat right now listening to this, Boss. So
outstanding.
You're already putting waves out there.
Well, and for those people, let me encourage you. Look, we came from ground zero in 1993, and we just stuck it out for the long haul. And if we can do it, you can do it. And let me encourage them to never get discouraged. Just keep pushing, do the right thing, do it smartly. And of course, we're always available for our strategic partners as well, to share things that we may have learned, and help as we can as well. So
that's right. So, Boz, we're gonna take a quick 30-second break to give us some messages for a sponsor. So I'm just going to hide you real quick. I'll be right back, everybody. All right, everybody. So with that, I wanted to show a quick message for the Left of Bank Show and our sponsors. It's all about awareness and understanding the threats that you're dealing with in your physical location. Yeah, it's one thing to understand threats in foreign areas, but what about our neighborhoods? What about our communities right here where you live? What I did is I developed what's called the Neighborhood Early Warning System. Takes you about 30, 45 minutes to get through this. And what I do is I walk you through a step-by-step guide on how to set up these nets around your neighborhood to key you off when we have a pre-event indicator, like some of these indicators we're talking about in the show right now. So I'm just going to push that out there real quick to everybody. Just give me 1 second. Everyone should see a little button on there. So if you'd like to click that, don't worry, it's not going to take you away from here. It'll just pop you up in another window. Definitely make sure you're still listening to us talk here. But everybody should see that Neighborhood Early Warning System. Like I said, it's really quick, takes you about 30, 45 minutes, and it helps you set up some automation to key you off when so many of these things are happening in and around our neighborhoods. So that is good to go. All right, so let me bring back Baz, and I have Baz, you there? Okay.
Yeah.
So here's my question, Baz, after having that. You mentioned before about the nature of these things, the crime escalating, the crime being more organized. Obviously you can't get into specifics, but I have a lot of people in here that teach this stuff to organizations, to churches, synagogues, to hotels, hotel staff, hospitality. You know, if you were sitting down with, like, I don't know, a bunch of CEOs in a room of, like, I don't know, hotel hospitality where this thing happens, what would you tell them? What message would you have for someone that works in that realm?
Well, in reference, Yousef, you mean to what to look for, or what's going on,
What
or
if you
what?
let me put it like this? But I'm going to pick a hotel brand. I'm
Sure.
not going to actually. No, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to say Ariat. It's a fantasy hotel, and you're sitting down with him, and you have the chance to tell him something about minimizing or disrupting or stopping this from happening in their facility. You know, and you have 5 minutes with them. What would you tell them? What would be the headline?
Every room is a closed quarter, which means
Mm,
some transaction can take place behind that door once it's closed.
hmm
And it does. Everything that you can think of can happen in a hotel room. If you
hmm
want to minimize your liability and you want to do something about anti-trafficking or crimes taking place within those closed quarters, train up your staff on what to look for and how to activate the response and have law enforcement there to do something about it.
Yep. What to
If
look
you,
for and what to do when you see it. Yep.
yeah, exactly.
hmm
And again, people need to be trained, and that's in a nutshell. That's what we talk about when we talk about hotels. You know, and we have spoken to a lot of hotel CEOs and stuff. You know, you and I were talking earlier about large events taking
hmm
place.
Yeah.
We have the Super Bowl coming up in LA. We've been here for months now on the ground preparing teams for that. But anytime you
Operationally. So you're
operationally,
wow. Wow. Okay.
yeah,
All right.
operationally. So
They're not just
um,
raising awareness, everybody.
So, you know, that takes meetings with different task force, law enforcement, and all kinds of stuff. You know, in Los Angeles, and I hope it never gets this way around other places, the DA here in LA
Oh
sucks.
yeah.
I
Oh
don't know
yeah.
how to put, and everybody knows it. He's not even planning on prosecuting any trafficking of adults.
His
He's
name
he,
is Javier Basura. If anybody wants to look him up, Javier Basura. That's our guy.
um, and So anyway, so the focus is going to be on children, but crime in LA has, I don't know, it's escalated beyond anything, to the point that now people are running operations wearing their vests and stuff in case, you know, some lead gets slung down range. Um, but anytime you have a major event, whether it's a big corporate event, I don't know, a car show or the Super Bowl or whatever, these just think of it this way: people gravitate to these events because there are masses of people that have money that can buy something, a commodity, popcorn, flags, t-shirts, and children. Okay.
hmm
So anytime you have one of these events happening, there's the likelihood that people are being trafficked as well,
hmm
especially children. So these are things that you need to be aware of as well, when it comes to, again, use of a great thing, a target rich environment, so to
hmm
speak,
hmm
you know,
hmm
concerning
Yeah.
that. So
I talk about, you know, I've worked with Ed Calderon a few times, and I shamelessly stole this from him, but he has a great, you know, he talks about barbershops. Hey, you need some intel? Barbershops are a great place to go. You know, if you ever need to know troop movements in America, just go to the barbershop. They'll let you know the whole fleet's, you know, movements for the next year. But he mentioned that he goes, look for the hunting grounds. You know, where are the hunting grounds? And in this scenario, Super Bowls, large events. So my safe instructors, if you're, I tell them a lot about Buzz, they have to solve specific problems with their awareness. And this is a specific problem, everybody. This is a specific problem. There's liability on the business side. They can do something to help. So I want everyone, you know, listening here. Sorry.
no, that's okay. I think for our audience, um, we always get a mixture of people. We get people that really care. Some people are interested, and I always tell people this: even if you don't give a rat's ass about trafficked children, let me ask you a simple question. Do we have a national security problem here? We absolutely do. Because if you can traffic children all over America undetected, what else can you traffic? Can you traffic nuclear weapons?
Anything.
Guns, drugs, whatever it may be. So I'm here to tell you from our personal and professional experience, nobody in the United States has been able to lock down the logistical mechanism on the transportation of children. And so that means that things are moving underneath our noses daily that we're not even aware of. So if you look at the border crisis that we're dealing with, right?
Yes.
Now, this will be the first time I announce this probably on your show, but most people don't know this. We were the first guys on the ground in Chattanooga, Tennessee, when the flights were coming in at 2 o'clock in the morning, bringing illegal, undocumented children from the border. We sent a report up to ICE. We notified the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and not even the governor of Tennessee knew this was happening at his airport.
In his own state.
His own state. We sent our report up to ICE. We never got feedback from ICE. And then about 3 weeks later, unofficially through some channels and DOJ, we were told that nothing was going to be done about it, and that the Biden administration wasn't speaking to people or was ignoring people or whatever. So you have this nefarious activity, which is clearly illegal. It wasn't approved by Congress. It's you know, these are basically, if you want to talk about trafficking, then you're looking at putting children on airplanes and taking them from the border into the interior of the country. What are you doing? You're moving children illegally, undocumented. So we followed those children in the buses and watched them get dropped off, no paperwork exchanged, to just people. We don't know who these people were. And then they were shuffled off. Now, we had an opportunity to sit down, have somebody that works with us, ARC, sat down with the cartel. Former CIA, you kind of, it's like dancing with the devil. You don't poke them in the eye.
Yeah.
And the only reason I believe that that member of the cartel would sit with us is because they are so confident in the amount of control they have here in the United States that they can blatantly say, we're doing this and nothing can be done. And I asked them, we said, so what is the thing, what's going on with the undocumented children that are coming to the border? And he said, we're assisting them across the line, meaning the border. Now, and he said, and think about this, age 17, comes across the border, gets put in foster care, CPS, wherever it may be, ages out at 18, now is released because he's now an adult.
To no guardian.
No work, no ability to work, no education. How does he make a living? And I said, I don't know, tell me, how does he make a living? And he said, we pay them. We pay them. They owe us from getting them there. They become our mules in the United States for drugs, child pornography, and prostitution. Right out of his mouth. Okay. So for people that don't see the other agendas behind this, they're not worldly smart, so to speak. So it's
billions of dollars. Like I remember talking to I got a lot of stories, I'm sure in your ears, Boz, about some of the things happening on the border. And they're just today, they're, I don't know, kind of going through some crazy stuff. But I can tell you it was north of the border, south of the border operations. Yes, you have all the dope in San Ysidro in that corridor. You have all the dope coming north. What's going south? All the money. And the biggest, most effective things they could do to really take these cartel groups down is to get the money going south. That they didn't care about the dope. They got tons of it, tons and tons of it, but they cared about the money. So, and that's another reason I'm just kind of talking out loud, Boz. I wonder if that's why the bureaucracy, the administrations, no one wants to do anything because it doesn't make any money. You're telling me to do what you do, you need funds, while the other side's profiting. So, wow, that's insidious, man. That's like it's like a plot.
Well, there from my CIA days, and I think anybody in our audience that's had time to work in the clandestine service understands this. there are deals made, political deals made, and the exchange of money at some of the highest levels of our own government that we're never privy to. I mean, we just we don't know, but I can assure you, without mentioning any names, that it happens. And that when you're looking at things at the border crossing, if there's an agenda, there's money being exchanged to allow that to happen. And the sad part about our nation, the future of our nation, is I think that the escalation that we will see in trafficking and drugs over the course of the next 5 years with this influx of illegal aliens is going to blow your mind. You got to remember that when people come into this country illegally, most of the time, they're bringing all their cultural habits with them. And this is no reflection on, this isn't a racism or discrimination thing,
It's a
statement. And I quite honestly, you know me well enough, I don't give a flip what people think about me, to be
you
honest.
Can jam it. Yeah.
Yeah. But people that live in other countries that come here, they bring those habits with them. And whether that is theft or murder or fraud or whatever it may be, this is normal for a lot of people in their countries. Now, the reason most Americans don't understand that is because they don't travel that much into a dirt poor country, a third world nation, to see how people survive. And when their government is failing them or whatever, and I'm not using this as an excuse, but they are used to, it is common for murder, theft, whatever it is, stealing, fraud, lying, that's common for them. So fast forward to the United States, where all of these people have been released, and you cannot convince me that if they have the opportunity to sell children to make money, that they're not going to do it. They absolutely have been doing it, and they will continue to do it, in addition to a lot of other things. So, you know, basically buckle up, because the next 5 years, you're going to see crime at every level, trafficking, drugs, whatever, worse than we've ever seen it in the United States. And I mean, we've been down this road too many times, you know?
And I'm playing the same game in my head, Boz, and I do this with my friends and family, is I go, what's next? What's next? What's next? So everyone's looking at right now, you know, it's turmoil, economy sucks, border, whatever. Everyone's looking down, and it's causing specific problems now, but you don't see the secondary and tertiary effects of the shit show right now that's gonna hit 3, 4, 5 years from now. The effects are gonna crystallize from then within the Border Patrol. Not to go on a tangent here, but you're getting a lot of pushback from them because a lot of their people I know are in there, and you can't even, it's turned from apprehension to get them the COVID shot and get them across the border. And I was never in Afghanistan. I did all my tours in Iraq, but culturally, I'll use this specifically. So if people want to talk about, this or that, you can't talk about cultures in Afghanistan, certain parts of it. I can't remember the name for it. You probably know, Boz, where they have the little boys dress up as girls, you know?
Right.
And this was so pervasive. Everybody listening, if you were in the Marine Corps, I didn't have to deal with it specifically, but you had Marines, a major specifically, have to go into a meeting with a guy, and he's got his little boyfriend who's 9 years old, 8 years old. He's got makeup on him, and he's dressed up. And he's telling him, this is my little, boy toy. And this major goes, it ain't going to go down like that. Puts a, big thing up to the Marine Corps and all these people. Long story short, guess what happened, Boz? They did the major. They did the major. They got his commission because of some technicality or whatever. And that guy did go to jail, and they let the jail. So it's like, even us at that point, Marines, we didn't play that game, but that was happening right there. And people don't realize that. And people don't realize that our leaders were like, well, they're a leader in the area, so you got to play ball.
I will tell you, Yousef, in our country, and I challenge all our listeners, and I challenge people in the country. It's funny. I got asked to run for governor of Colorado, and I chose not to do that because it would take away from ARC. And then I started looking at the amount of compromise, and it's just a nasty world. I'm not a politician. I'm a leader, and maybe that's actually what we need in our country. But people have got to quit being afraid to voice the truth of the Constitution, of what's right, and stand up for what's morally right, instead of just going, well, I can't talk about this. I can't talk about BLM or Antifa or the LGBT or whatever it may be. Let me school some people on some stuff. The LGBTQYXZ, whatever they are, and this is no reflection on people that I know that are gay, because I've worked with gay people, and some of them are very nice. But that organization they're a big push for pedophilia being taken off the crime list, and people and calling it.
Wasn't there some legislation?
Yeah,
Wasn't there actually legislation proposed?
They're always pushing legislation for it to be minor attracted individual or whatever it may be, saying basically it's okay to rape children. Okay. And then, we had the whole BLM thing, and I've got Black American friends that didn't go along with that because it's a socialist organization, destruction of the family unit and destruction of the Constitution. And then there's Antifa, and there's all this stuff. And we've all backed down. I had friends in Portland and who were complaining about Antifa burning their buildings down. And I said, you know what? This is your fault. Why don't you defend your city? Stand up and be an American. I tell people this constantly in our courses because, look, on the ARC staff, we come from everywhere. And one of the biggest problems we have in our country is simply this. And now I know I've segued off of trafficking, but
this is all good, man. Learning is occurring.
If you don't realize this, look, I came from an organization that literally overthrew government. So I know how to break them down and I know how to build them back up. And one of the biggest farces we have in our country right now is this whole diversity crap and all this other equity stuff. Let me explain something to us. There are no Asian Americans. There are no African Americans. Most of the people that call themselves African Americans haven't lived in Africa. Most Asians that call themselves Asian Americans never lived in Asia. Most Irish Americans never lived in Ireland, and the list goes on and on and on. We're just Americans. And when you bring up the fact that the differences in people look at the differences. But under the Constitution of the United States, as an American, your rights are protected. You can't be, the discrimination. You have so much power behind you. And guess what happens? We unify ourselves. You and I know this, Yousef. We go down range. I don't care what color your skin is. We all bleed the same color. When we've drug our buddies out of the trenches, they were our brothers and they all bled the same color. And so it's like walking on the 49ers playfield and saying, oh, hi, I'm a Dallas Cowboy 49er. The 49er is going to look at you like you're crazy and go, wait a minute, you can't be both. You're either a Cowboy or you're a 49er.
What I say is we see it every day, and especially with my SAFE instructors. If you want more information about my SAFE course, I saw some comments in here, drop SAFE in the comment section. We'll shoot you a link. But I talk to them a lot about, we're human beings, even a lower level than that on the biological level, it's human beings. So when it comes for threats, whether it be trafficking, violent threat, when it comes to situational awareness, I don't give a crap what you look like. I don't care if you're purple. But if you show me the behavior of a threat, guess what, brother? You got my full attention. And I'm getting on the phone with all my other buddies and getting your attention. So people want to make it, when you bring up certain things, they want to turn it into an identity politics thing.
Right.
And I just dial it down. I go, wait a minute. I'm not talking about that. That's a different subject matter. I'm talking about biology, fear centers, threat, looking out for them. And that usually shuts people down. It's like we can have this academic conversation about where we came from, but I'm talking about how to help people, how to stop kids from getting snatched off a street,
Well, it's important. And it's important for us because I have to deal with that as people come in. They always have these identity questions like, do you rescue these kind of kids and those kind of kids? And I tell them, I go, look.
Like you target certain kids.
I go, look, let me explain something to you. I went and fought for this country. Do you know why? Because all lives matter. I don't care what your color is. If you're an American and you're an American kid and you've been kidnapped or exploited, we're going to come get you. We're going to do our very best to do that. And so we're able to throw that out because that's who we are. And we and people on our staff, we don't actually have this problem on our staff. at all, because we've been downrange together and we all understand this.
It's
If
glue.
you could get America to understand that and start looking at everybody just being an American, our nationalism, we would see a shift.
You're saying some dangerous words about nationalism, pride for your country. Let's slow down here.
So it's one of the things we do if we bring somebody on, we make sure that they're kind of true-blooded Americans, so to speak. Now, I am prejudiced, and I'll tell you what I'm prejudiced against. I'm prejudiced against lazy people. I don't care where you come from.
That's a Marine thing.
If you're lazy and you want a handout and you want me to give and give, I want, and you're not willing to work for it, I don't want you. I don't want anything to do with you. We weren't raised that way as a child. I wasn't brought up that way in the Marine Corps. It wasn't that way in the CIA, and we're not that way now. It's like every man pulls his weight. Yeah. And so for people that may be listening to me now, and I know that we get this, sometimes they go, oh, well, that's just a white privilege thing. Let me school you. My grandfather came here in 1914 from Lebanon and married a Native American woman. And we lived in the only black section of Georgetown, South Carolina. The woman who helped deliver all of my aunts and uncles was a black woman. Okay. She wasn't an African American. She was a black American. Okay. So I grew up in that community and I know what I'm talking about. And guess what? We loved each other dearly. We didn't see the differences in people. We shared our food. There were hard times. We shared our clothing. We laughed together. We cried together. And so anybody who wants to challenge me in that area,
I doubt they would, Baz.
You're barking up the wrong tree, so to speak.
Those people won't do that. They won't actually put their safety on the line. So I've been rambling on. We've been to a great session of information, but I want to tell everybody listening right now, we have a few more minutes to wrap this up. Baz has to go save the world again. Put some questions in here. What questions do you have for Baz that we haven't really talked about, or that's kind of sitting in your head? I don't know. We got a lot in here, so I might not get to every 106 questions, but we're going to have some good ones, and I'll pick some of those out as Baz takes us out here in a second. So let me just look through these for a second, Baz. Oh, that's a good one right there. So you already got your first convert there, Baz. Jason Sussdorf says, I'm taking your art course in May in Arizona. What is some literature knowledge I can educate myself on in the meantime? Good question.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Just come to the course. It's a very intense course. You don't want to burn your brain out before you get there. Don't worry about that. It's a good question, but we'll be able to fill in all the blanks for you. Trust me, it's a very thorough course. You're
in good hands, Jason. You're in good hands. And we'd get shooters in the Marine Corps. I was a PMI. I was a coach for a while, and you'd get two kind of kids who come up to you. One's the kid from Oshkosh, middle of nowhere, grew up hunting his whole life, and you got the city kid. It's much easier to take a shooter who doesn't know anything and train them as someone who's grew up shooting. So whenever I got the country kids, I was like, oh, crap, I got to unlearn him from some of his bad habits. So having that clean slate's very good. Let me go through again. All right. So Jason, let's see. Interesting one. I don't know if you can answer this,
Sure.
Baz, but are there any common traits in domestically abducted / trafficked children or their families? And I'm thinking John's asking, is there some type of indicator or behavior that I could look at and go, I think that person might be trafficked?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. We know that a lot of trafficked children domestically, a lot of times it starts at home. They've been molested by an adult, an aunt, an uncle, a parent, whatever it may be. We've had children that have actually been sold into trafficking by their parents, which sounds unheard of, but it's becoming more frequent. And so there are things, there are so many signs, but generally children that have been trafficked or been traumatized, and I don't know if that trauma actually has to come from trafficking, it can become from something else. Sometimes they won't look you in the eye. There's Sometimes kids are bruised, because they've been abused. Sometimes they act out sexually. It's just a whole list of things. Let me encourage you, if this is an area that you want to dive more into, let me encourage you to come to the course or pick up some great literature on that. And there's a lot of organizations out there that teach awareness, and they'll have a list of 12 or 13 things that you can kind of go through and just put in your back pocket to make you aware the next time you run into some children.
That's great, Baz. That's great. So Jen, is there a website or email address? I'm a police officer interested in helping my department and community in a greater awareness of the problem. I'm going to jump on this one, Jen, real quick before Baz does. But when we're all done here, when we're done talking, everyone's going to get redirected to Baz's website. And that's for a couple of reasons I'll talk about. But you're going to get redirected to hit the ARC, and you're going to have all those options there, Jen. So I hope that helps you out. Got a lot of people in here asking for ARC training. Mark Fabian wants it in Savannah, Georgia, Arizona, a couple other places. So we'll make sure we got those. So, all right, everybody. Looks like we're slowing down. Baz, I want to thank you so much. I'm going to let you have the last word before we send them into the ARC Foundation page. But it's been a pleasure, my friend. I really appreciate you've done so much good today. About 106 people came in here to listen to this. We absolutely made a difference today. You said something today to someone that keyed them off, and they're going to go, wait a minute, I remember this one guy telling me something, and they're going to save the day in some capacity. So, again, thank you so much. When everyone gets redirected, listen up. I'm redirecting you there. What Baz talked about, they need funds, they need power, they need energy to go out and get these kids. So, like, Baz, can you give me a list real quick? I want you to make it real for everyone. If I give you like $100, if I donated $100, can you quickly, like, what does that $100 go to? Am I buying a lunch?
It immediately goes to an operational fund, and as a case comes into us, we budget the case. For example, let's say the difference between a case in the United States and Namibia. In order to go rescue an American kid in Namibia that's been kidnapped or trafficked there, you're looking at a $70,000 operation. That's mostly, because the cost of a flight round trip is like $6,000.
Jeez, wow.
In the States, you're looking at maybe, believe it or not, as low as $20,000 because transportation is easier. We can take our own vehicles. We don't spend our time in hotels. And in fact, most people that are running an operation, if they're not in a garbage dump running surveillance and they're sitting in the Wyndham Hotel, I would really question that. It's not that you can't get a shower, but when you're out there to do the job, you're out there to do the job. It's like dropping a sniper in. You go in, you hit your target, and you come out, you can shower later. So a lot of times that's how that money is used. It's overseen by a brilliant board of directors, and we have Tashima and Company, which are CPAs and accountants. So, and of course, there's oversight by the IRS. So, we can be audited anytime, and we don't have a problem. We don't have a problem with one single penny, to be honest with you. So thank you for that.
No, that's great, Baz. And like I said, get your wallets out. Okay. I don't care what you got to do. Get your wallets out. Help this man. There are a bunch of you asking, hey, what can I do? What can I read? This is what you can do. These guys are at the tip of the spear, and they're literally saving kids. So, Baz, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. This was fantastic. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, Yousef. I guess let me just say this. Look, children are the future of our country. I know we run around looking at a generation that kind of has their noses stuck in their cell phones and their computers, and they're not aware of what's going around with them. But you know what? There's a generation after that. There's the 1-year-old baby. There's the 5-year-old baby, and up to 18. And these kids didn't ask to be born into someone selling them into trafficking or a poor life or whatever. So I know a lot of you have lives, and you have families, and you have other responsibilities. But at a time in your life when all of that gets put aside, please consider saving the life of a child by getting boots on the ground, training yourself to be as close to what we are, and actually go out there and save a child. A child does not come home until boots are on the ground that physically quickly get their hands on that child and bring them home to their parents or to a rehab center or whatever it may be. So pray about it. See if it can be a part of your life. We love to have more war fighters out there, so to speak, because truly it is a war. It's a war against children. And at least do this for our country. Start in your own backyard, because chances are it's happening right there under your nose in your small town, in your big town, across America. And just commit to doing one thing, and then I'll leave it at this. Just remember, if you do not, then who will? So my challenge to each of you is go rescue one kid in your lifetime. Just one. Just one. That's it. That's not a big number. Do what you can to school yourself and go save the life of one American child. Thank you for your time today. God bless all of you, and God bless our great country.
Thank you so much, Baz. Semper Fi, brother.
You too, brother. All right, out here.